Ballers, and behold the smile on my face, because yesterday I had like a video that I knew was people going to be messed up about, and today that's not the case because I'm one happy boy. Why? The MSQ just went pew off in a different direction, and I was like, yeah, dude, this is my jam. This is where we're going. And finally, a ton of really good theory crafting going on, and a lot of it kind of paying off very quickly of what seems to be going on, because it's not tropey, but it's definitely, you can see where they've picked up elements of sci-fi fiction and put it into the story, and I was like, oh, I think this is what's happening. Oh, I think this is what's happening. And it kind of turns out that is what's happening, although I don't have conclusions yet, and I've got theories. We have reached Solution 9, but before getting there, things started to get a little weird. But it's not all sunshine and roses, right? It's not all rainbows and waterfalls. Still some odd gameplay choices, that's for sure. So we're entering the bubble. We burst through with the train. We did the Vanguard dungeon, which was fine. And then we're inside of Usulani. And this is Erenville's old home. So I was really looking for some payoff to Erenville. We got that. And interesting place, right? Because the first thing they started pointing out is, this is the layout. Like, Erenville is like, yeah, but everything's like way older. Way older. And I was like, ooh. Now, I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. Massive sci-fi nerd. Particularly Star Trek. Not so much Star Wars. That can go over there. Don't really care. But Trek and things like that, big fan of. And Doctor Who and all those kinds of things. And all of that came into play because I was like, immediately like, oh, wait a minute. Time's weird here. And my first thought was, what if Solution 9 is actually just, and this was the first theory it came about. Now, I want to say, so I'm going to point out some theories here that I had as they, like, popped into my head, but upon thinking about them, I was like, okay, that doesn't really add up, but I thought it would have been cool. Are we in a pocket of time where the Turalians, we'll call them that, advanced? Because that would have played into what we talked about recently with, like, the natives and their worries about the encroaching amount of technology and Kona's mad focus onto technology. And this is actually the outcome of that, maybe 100 years in the future, is that the technology just kept advancing. Kona kept pushing, and then maybe his offspring kept pushing, or whatever. And the next generation kept pushing for more and more technology. The Cerulean minds went crazy, and people started advancing and moving forward. And what we're actually dealing with is the Turalians of the future who devastated their own world in the pursuit of just technological advancement. Almost like a Wall-E type environment, where they just kept advancing, and they abandoned nature, they abandoned environmental causes because they just moved into the sky. They harnessed the power of lightning, which is what we see everywhere. And they're really kind of not happy about it because they might be facing some really late problems, and that always plays into things like, usually when technology advances, birth rates drop, because obviously birth rates are, if you don't know, birth rates are extraordinarily high in worse conditions, because there's kind of a feeling it's like, not all my kids will survive, right? And so a lot of people in poor countries have a lot of children because they should go out and try and bring more in. Like, you're spreading your wings to bring more in, and there isn't some level of expectation that not all children will survive. And so breeding goes out of control in worse conditions. But as we get more convenient and more safe, more stable, then birth rates drop massively, because one child is enough. 2 children is enough, or no children is fine, because other people are going to have children, and it becomes a sort of it becomes a problem late game. We'll call it late game because we're gamers. Is that this has led to a lot of issues in the future. Certainly if they may be interested in cloning and things like that, which can go wrong. So I was like, oh my god, it could be that. Now, upon reflection, is like, yeah, that doesn't really add up, but like certain pieces of that puzzle fit together. And then we meet the enigmatic woman. The enigmatic woman. My initial impression of Sphene was, wow, this is the most fan-servicey crap I've ever seen. Waifu has arrived in her beautiful, delicate stockings. I can see the cosplay already. She's so shiny and happy, and oh my god, everybody's so happy and joyful. And I was like, I hate this character. Then I went, she's a robot. Like, it's so blatantly a robot. I was like, robot. I don't know if that's true, but I have a gamble going on with our live stream audience that she is absolutely a robot, and more evidence keeps pulling up. Because I was like, this is too weird. It's too weird. It's too out there. It's too fan servicey. She's a robot for sure, and there's clues that came up later that really double down on the fact that she's probably a robot or a droid. And I'm like, she's totally like an AI. This is like talking to ChatGPT or something. I'm really curious as to her origins, though. So she takes us on a tour. I did mention the gameplay not ideal because they took us on a tour of the plants and crops growing, and it's basically the same as like how plants and crops grow. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so we water the plants. I'm like, that's great. And then we have nourishing soil for them to grow in. I'm like, that's pretty good. And then we put light on them. Like, yep, that's chlorophyll does require that. That makes sense. So I was like, okay, gameplay wise, not ideal. But still, everything started to get curious then. The most curious thing is we met Namika. And Namika was part of the train that got stuck in the bubble. And Namika survives and get off. And she's there. And our wonderful Sphene. One thing is curious is obviously the FF9 music. Now I have played all the FF games. Instantly recognized it. They call it Alexandria. I googled Sphene. And Sphene is essentially Garnet from FF9. But Sphene is... how is it described? It's actually another word for Titanite. But I don't mean Dark Souls. Sphene is delicate, gentle, fragile, malleable stone. So that indicates what this character is. She's delicate, she's fragile, she's gentle, is what she is. She's Queen Sphene. Why they decided to go with a rhyming situation here, because I was like, Queen Sphene with her clean beans and etc, etc. It was cool. But everything about this I was enjoying, by the way, because the next thing that happens is Namika is coming to the end of life, and they talk about, well, it's not the end, but they're also not saying exactly what happens. Like, they're a bit like, yeah, and it actually turns out this all makes sense. The Turali who were there when the bubble appeared, and these people from a different reflection appeared from Alexandria, didn't take too well initially to the way things work in Alexandria and their cultural systems. And so, obviously, the Queen is aware of that. So she's like, well, let's just one step at a time before you find out everything about how Alexandria works. Because we know you're going to have some resistance to this. And rightfully so, because it's a little odd. But they point out it's not going to be a problem. So, Wuklamat, obviously, very emotional scene here. Really liked this scene. I thought this was, again, I feel, I'm going to bring this up. Forget it. It is what it is. Wuklamat's voice actor is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Like, there's problems with the character and the direction in certain cases of how cheery and naive she's supposed to be, which is obviously played up for the story. But when the delivery needs to be done, she nails it. She absolutely nails it. Like, and in this scene where we got some real emotional depth, it was great. It was really good. It was very touching. And both of Namika's voice actor and Wuklamat nailed it. But then we find out very quickly after is that everybody forgets Namika exists, despite the fact she's been a really culturally significant point for the people on the ground below Solution 9 in Alexandria for a very long time, but they've immediately forgot after they received their after they got patched by their CDs or their USBs on the side of their head. And then I was immediately like, oh, okay, we're talking, this has been done a lot of times in sci-fi. You'll know films probably like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Doctor Who, Gridlock had similar things where they took drugs like Forget, where I was immediately like, oh, are they literally removing the memories of bad things in order to maintain happiness? So that nobody ever, as far as these people are concerned, they never really go through anything bad like loss or death or pain or, does your child die? Well, you just forget your child ever existed. Or somebody meaningful passes on or whatever, you just forget because they can remove those memories from all the people because they're all wearing their USB sticks. I was like, it's a really interesting philosophical question. I actually think this is one of the most interesting. And sci-fi fiction has pushed the idea that this is generally just bad, and that character and personality and resilience is born out of not always being perpetually happy. And we've seen that a lot with people who try to force, phrases like toxic positivity, where despite the realities of life, which can be very, very hard, You know, I've suffered through some very horrible things. You know, the loss of my father. Even things that are considered lesser, like the loss of my dog, but meant a hell of a lot to me. Being evicted recently, my kids and wife being in a rather severe car accident. That all happened within the last 6 months, right? Those are things that also do breed resilience and coping and how to deal with these situations and move on. And these are important to build who you are and all these kinds of things. So it's a trope that's often, if you could remove, because some people react differently. Some people fall into a very long depression, right? I could go into detail here of how my mother reacted once my father died, and she was lost for a long time. She's pulled herself out of it now, but she was lost for a very long time. And there are a lot of people suffering with depression and stuff. It's like, could you just make all those feelings go away? And a lot of people would like that quick, easy solution, especially if they don't feel they can get out of it. And some people don't, as we know. So it's like it's a real deep question. It's like, if you could do this, would you do it? Even like a breakup, right? A very severe breakup with a girlfriend, a boyfriend, whatever, that leaves you tattered and torn is like, your child is hit by a car or something like that, and you've lost your young child, and no parent should ever outlive their children is a phrase we hear. All these things. So I was like really into this story. I was like, I was still posing the question, talking about it. I was like, this is Final Fantasy 14, God damn it! This is what I want to do. I want to stop the story, and I want to be like, okay, what do we do here? How do we feel about this? How does it? Because everybody will have different reactions, right? Everyone will have all these different thoughts on it. It's like, well, it depends on the situation. It's not black and white. It's not universally yes or no. It's like this is actually horrendously bad, and there's nothing we could have done about it. But, like, this is a normal part of life. But how far do you go with it? Is like, if you lost your keys and it really angered you that morning, would you forget that happened because you just want to get rid of that, like, frustration for the rest of your day? Like, what is the limit? What is the line? You know, all these questions have risen. So I thought this was very cool. Not knowing the motivations for doing this stuff is like, this is interesting stuff. This is what I want to talk about. But also the indication here is they're like uploaded to, I called it the cloud before the game did. I was like, they're probably in the cloud, right? And that makes sense for probably some sort of virtual world we're going to, which may be Arcadian, the raid, where all the souls, essentially all the memories of people, are in this virtual world. Where they're living out their best lives, like this afterlife, that they get digitized and moved up. And I was like, that's kind of cool. As long as you have the choice to one day end it, because I don't think anybody, even digitally, wants to live forever. But if you could go into some virtual Ready Player One style world after you pass on, where you could just do amazing, wonderful things. Although I do suspect, given the nature of the human race, is that if that existed, it would turn into the most hedonistic, nightmare-fueled environment. There would be places you don't want to visit, right? If they exist in the real world, they're going to be way worse in a world with no consequences. Let's put it that way. So we haven't explored that yet. We'll see where it goes. More indications, of course, that Queen Sphene was the robot. And then we figured out the soul system. This is really interesting to me. Again, this is why I was... at this point, genuinely, I had forgotten about the past MSQ. It might as well have not existed. And it falls into our ethos is that Dawntrail's MSQ just tried to do too much. Way too much is how I feel about it. It just genuinely tried to do way, way too much. Because it then falls into the idea is that there's still a hierarchy of economics going on here. Which I think is something that we're going to explore soon. I really hope we do. In that, basically, everybody has one-ups. You get extra lives because you have these souls, and it ties back into the fact that they were taking souls from the civilians who died on the attack on Tiliolol. Is they were taking souls. You know, we called the materia as a joke, but my first reaction was, oh god, they're sucking out their soul like Shang Tsung or something. But that is exactly what they're doing. And people can have backup souls. And if you die of an accident, now I think this is going to be one of those things that are like, don't overthink it too much, because I was like, well, what if you like fall off something and you land on your neck and it snaps in half and you get an extra soul so you can come back to life? Does your body repair or something? I don't know. They'll probably just go, yeah, you're magically repaired. But it can't stop natural death. Like, it can't stop old age, which is why Namika died. And then that raises yet more cool questions like, okay, without having the answers yet, and this is why I talk to you guys on a daily basis about this stuff, because I don't have the answers yet. It's like, that creates a really weird economy of scale. So it is established that you have to work to earn extra souls. First of all, going back to the birth rate thing, if you literally have no risk of accidental death, That probably causes even more of a problem with reproduction. We're getting there soon. Because birth rates are probably really, really low if you literally have no drive to repopulate, because you're definitely going to live to a long old age. That probably drives it into the ground even more. Secondly, very, very high chance, if the only people are dying in your society of old age, that you are rapidly outpacing the use of souls for people dying accidentally versus those who are replenishing those souls who are dying of old age. There are way, 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 way more causes of death than old age in the world, right? Way, way more. And a lot of them are accidental or avoidable in some way, shape, or form. And if you have a way of using and consuming some resource that is only generated by the death of old age, you're going to run out pretty goddamn quick, I would imagine. I haven't done the notes, but that's my gut feeling on it. Which then leads to, wait a minute. The rich or the wealthy or the powerful are absolutely not going to risk not having souls. And this reminds me of a movie that's not great, but it's kind of worth the watch, called In Time with Justin Timberlake. Again, a little sci-fi romp. Cillian Murphy's in it. Where they were trading in time, how long you live. Your body had a time that was attached to their wrists in that movie. And you were paid in time. So the lowest of the low, the menial labor of the society was working to earn the next day to keep working, right? A perpetual cycle. It's very on the nose with its messaging. However, the ultra wealthy had literally like millions of years, right? They had earned millions of years and they will never die. And I was like, okay, yeah, we do have this limitation in old age, but I can imagine the wealthy of the society are not going without souls, and they're probably trying to put the lesser workers in situations where they're at higher risk of accidental death and they have to work to collect their souls, right? I could see that going on. But not only that, we then get an explanation for the battle stuff, is that they can use the souls of beasts as well, which enable them to power themselves up. So it explains why the Roche boss in Vanguard is able to summon the power of a snake, because he's using a snake beast thing as his berserker thing. It also explains Zoral-Ja powering up and rezzing during his fight with Father. So I was like, oh, this is cool, but the economy of it is what interests me. I don't really care about the powers, it's the economy of me, and that's explored shortly. So we meet the Resistance, which contains Erenville's mum. I called this immediately as soon as I saw this robot. I was like, that's Mummy. And what a wonderful character, wonderful voice actor. Absolutely tremendous. Loved this. I can't remember what she calls him, a snuggly bun bun or some nonsense like that. I was like, oh god, really going down that road. I like that Erenville here still has skepticism, even though like every aspect of this is his mother in this floating TV. I really enjoy that Erenville, even after all this and re-meeting his mother, is like, we still don't know if that's my mother. I was like, that's cool. Not enamored, not overwhelmed by it. It's like still, there's a lot in Dawntrail. Not a lot, but there's a few nods to some good storytelling between parents and children. Because it happened with the discovery of Wuklamat's heritage, biological heritage, where she was like, well, you're not my father, and, you know, yes, I understand what's going on here, but, you know, daddy is my daddy. I don't know you, and that's the situation. Like, really kind of nice, not over the top. And this is another one, is I liked Erenville loving to see his mother again, but then afterwards being like, we still don't know that 100%. Like, we don't know that, because the actual origins of where she's coming from are probably in the virtual world or the cloud, but we'll see. We'll see where it's going. But we met the Resistance and the twins, and now it's time to infiltrate Solution 9 on behalf of Queen Sphene. And a lot of the stuff that I theorize starts to play out. First of all, Solution 9 is phenomenal. Absolutely beautiful. There's no question at all. As soon as you get to Solution 9, you're like, this is great. I talked about Palette Cleanser with the Western Zone, and this is even more. This is more. Again, the start of Dawntrail is a rocky road, and it picks up massively around now. Exploring this was great. The marketplace was very cool, the different foods and stuff. But the more interesting things that are happening here, which is more FF14, is I'm loving the dynamic between Sphene and Zoral-Ja. In that, and I suspect this is what is going on, because we have a cutscene between both of them talking, where Zoral-Ja makes it abundantly clear that she needs him. Despite the fact that she wants him gone, and she doesn't want this military thing, I'm treating her, for the remainder of this discussion, I'm treating her as a robot. Who is pre-programmed kind of with Wuklamat's personality. Because, I mean, it's very clear that she's following sort of like the tenets of a Wuklamat type character. in that everything for the people, happy, 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 happy. My job is to make them happy and to keep society happy and safe. Now, a robot, in particular, with a system that is designed on soul consumption in order to keep the population alive, and certainly a declining birth rate and the problem with the old age that we talked about earlier, would be aware that there's just not enough to go around. And inevitably this is going to collapse. And that would be bad for the people in terms of a robot's eyes. This would be a bad idea because this is the system and the system is failing and collapsing. But Alexandria had undergone a calamity and there's no more souls to get, really. So I have to wonder a few things. First of all, are criminals, which is indicating with the father of the twins from the Resistance, if you do any kind of discretion in Solution 9, are you killed and they take your soul because they need more souls? Is that a policy that Zoral-Ja implemented? So when Zoral-Ja, I wonder if it's going to play out that Zoral-Ja arrived in Alexandria and rose to power because he could do something no one else could do. And that is murder and acquire souls. He had the moral flexibility that the rest of them don't have because they're all wired in or whatever. And he offered Queen Sphene a way out. Make me king, and I will bring souls and restore the goodness to your people. Because you can't do it, because you are gentle, and you are fragile, and you do not have what it takes to maintain the society. And it's made very clear, Zoral-Ja doesn't give a flying flip about these people. He'll kill them all. They're a means to an end. They're a tool for his ascension, and she knows that. And he would be more than willing to enact policy like, whoa, you stole a chocolate bar? Dead. And I will keep this society flourished with souls, and we can erase their memory. So I imagine we're going down the road that actually Solution 9 used to be massively populated, because it's a huge place. But I bet that population, without anybody knowing, because their memories have been wiped, has dwindled to a fraction of what it's supposed to be. And I'm kind of wondering whether we'll encounter something like, well, most of the apartments are empty. Because we're prepared for a lot of people, not knowing that those apartments used to be full, and they're not anymore. So I'm really wondering if we're going down that, because that's why he's waging war, because the indication of the story is that, like, she's going to betray us in some way, because she feels she needs to, because Zoral-Ja needs to wage his war, because if he kills a lot of the people of Tural and maybe Eorzea, that her society that she's sworn to protect or programmed to protect will thrive. It will do very, very well, and she needs that. That's the good thing. That's the solution. So that's where this seems to be going. I really had this doubled down when we do yet another tour. She's terrible at tours, is Queen Sphene. She's the worst tour guide ever. She takes us to a market, and then she takes us to see a dying child. But the kids are being born ill. And I was looking around, I was like, is there any children here? Because that was my first question. And we go and visit a child, but the children are being born ill and are going to die. And my impression of what's happening here is every time these people resurrect over generation, it's kind of like cloning in a way, but they're not biologically replacing them. But their ether is being diluted because they're consuming another soul in order to keep living. And this is causing, when they reproduce and produce a child, to be weak etherically. Which also provides a solution for them to solve it later. I'm sure Y'shtola is going to turn up and just unleash the ether or something and repair the children or something like that. But I suspect the people of Alexandria have been, for generations now, accidentally dying, using a soul, and every time they've done that, it's weakened their ether, and now the children are suffering the consequences of that because they simply don't have the etheric power to exist. They're like just weak to it or poison to it, something along those lines. I suspect that's where it's going, which then plays into the issues of reproduction we talked about earlier. So I was like, I really like this. This is all stuff that I enjoy a great deal. An absolutely great deal. I like that there's this almost the robotic nature. Obviously, there's more indications that she's a robot because she can't eat. They ask her her favorite food. She has no idea because she's probably never eaten food in her entire life. And she's also sort of too perfect. You know, it's too perfect wandering around as this queen, benevolent queen, who's very pretty and floaty and la la la. She's so Disney princess, walking around. And the people, it was interesting. We had a great encounter with somebody who was poor, because Zoraljar shut down the arena, which is the raid. So the raid is back open now. So we're probably from the resolution of the MSQ, because obviously the raid launched yesterday is when I'm recording this. And I imagine that the arena was using a lot of soul consumption, because if you were safe from death, this is something we talked about earlier on with the souls economy. If you were safe from death, accidental death, right, and you can only really die of natural old age causes, the hedonistic nature of people would be to put them in really vicious gladiatorial combat where they could be slain, heads cut off, all sorts of stuff. Because you're fine. You can resurrect afterwards, right? So you would absolutely probably have that environment of the absolutely most brutal murder, and it would be ancient Rome again, but the gladiators would respawn, right? And then we meet one of those gladiators. He shut down the arena because he would enact that, right? It's like, this is a waste of souls, and you need more souls, so that goes. Anything that's overly using souls will be gone, and he shuts down the Arcadian for that reason. And we meet one of those ex-fighters who's like, I can't work anymore because I was a gladiator in the arena, and I've run out of souls, and I can't afford more. And people are mocking him. He's like, yeah, he's a slacker. He's a layabout. He's not getting anything. And she's like, and these people are so used to the fact that they cannot die, that that blanket that they've had being taken away is terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying, because they're all used to the fact that they simply can't die. And when they reach the levels of poverty where they can't afford to respawn, that's like having nothing. They might as well have nothing, because now everything's scary. Everything's terrifying. I now can't leave the Arcadian because it's dangerous outside. There might be a beast. There might be bad weather. There might be a flood. There might be a rock falling. I need to stay here, but it's safe. And I like that they're exploring all this. And moaning at the Queen, even when she glitches out and has to, like, download data to answer the question. And she's like, hey, let's talk about it, because happy, happy, happy. Needless to say, I think I've talked long enough. Awesome. Awesome. Awesome! So much better. So much better. The characters are established. We're now able to introduce some cool side characters like Erenville's mother. Some, I think, Shale. We've got our Geralt reflection. I think he's called Genalt or something like that. Maybe we'll see a Rowena in there somewhere. Awesome. Super fun. Super enjoyable. Everything about it. You can tell, like, the difference here is incredible. The difference is incredible. And my only thoughts on this is something we've talked about a lot, is I wonder if they would not have been better served at this point by not doing the Zero Golbez storyline at the end of Endwalker, and in fact doing a lot of Wuklamat's introduction in Eorzea outside of Tural during the Endwalker stuff. Because we're kind of doing back-to-back things. So if here's the new character and we're going through their progression like we did with Zero. From here to here is important because we're going to have Zero coming back later. She's even referenced in the MSQ now. And then we did it all again with Wuklamat. But practicality-wise, because they wanted Wuklamat to be a Hrothgal and explore Tural is probably why they didn't do that. But it would, I mean, at this point, I'm like, this would have been so much better served if we didn't have to also do the character development of Zero to Hero with Wuklamat in Dawntrail, and we could have focused on this stuff. But then maybe I'm biased because I really like this stuff a lot. But that's where we're at. Happier days, my friends. And I feel like we're near the end of the MSQ. So we'll see where we go. Hope to see you in the live stream. If not, I'll see you here tomorrow. Bye, guys.